Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. It's so good of you to join me here today. Now today I want to explain what this beautiful, awesome, lovely map is. Now you might be wondering, hey, I've seen this map before. It just looks like any plain old map of Europe. And you're right, this is just yet another map. But the context of this map matters more than anything. If you look at this map, it looks like a normal drive slash boat slash plane trip that one could take over the course of one weekend and see parts of Europe. This just seems like a weekend getaway map. But alas, it is not just any normal map. It is a map of one adventures of one brave, bold man. This cool bro right here, Pytheas of Massilia. And the second I learned about him, I had to share everything I knew about this brave, bold adventure because it opened my mind and my eyes to the perspectives of history that I find so fascinating and interesting. This map is of an adventurer who took this route in the year 325 BC. 325 BC, during the time when the Greeks looked like this. They had colonies all across Europe. This predates the Roman Empire by a couple of hundred years. And this brave adventurer took a journey out of Massilia, France, which it's crazy to think that the Greeks colonized something as far north and as far west as France were at one point inhabited by the Greeks. Anyway, this brave, bold adventurer took this journey all the way across, hit the coast of Britain, mad lad over there, went up through Ireland and Scotland, and even managed to go to Iceland before the Vikings. Now, isn't this like crazy to think that somebody like beat the Vikings to Iceland by over 1,000 years? Well, this brave, bold adventurer did. And how does Wikipedia honor him? Let's read some of the text here. On his voyage, he circumnavigated and visited a considerable part of modern-day Great Britain and Ireland. He was the first known scientific visitor to see and describe the Arctic, polar ice, and the Celtic and Germanic tribes. He is also the first person to record and to describe the midnight sun, theoretical existence of some northern phenomena, and described such as the frigid zone and temperature zones, where nights and very short summers short in summer, and the sun does not set at the summer solstice, was already known. Similarly, reports of a contrary perpetual snow and darkness, the country, I don't even know how to say it, had reached the Mediterranean some centuries before. This is insane, because this challenges my view of history, and I should challenge all of our views of history, because when you start thinking in history, like, when were the British Isles? When was Iceland and Ireland? When did they start integrating into the European community? And you start thinking, well, it's when the Romans first pushed out there and met these peoples. But if you follow this tale, you start looking back hundreds of more years into the past, and you realize that there were records and histories, and it even says here that his writings, his account of the tales have been lost. Everything that we know about his adventures, secondhand knowledge of what he told other people. At least that's what it says here on the page in Wikipedia. It says, but it is. He says he made the voyage of exploration to northwestern Europe in about 325 BC, but his account of it, known widely in antiquity, has not survived and is now known only through the writings of others. This is insane. Like, the amount of knowledge that we have lost, and the fact that even somebody like this existed 2,300 years ago and was able to travel all the way north of Iceland, makes me wonder if there were trips that were made by other explorers that did not get captured, or other explorers that just went and sailed across the ocean. Because believe me, you look at this map, if you can make it all the way from here, from Massalia, France, and you could go all the way to Iceland, trust me, it's not that much more risky to think, oh, hey, you could just push out to North America. And who knows, maybe we did have European settlers in North America that predate the Roman Empire. Maybe the Greeks have done it, but there's no accounts that survive. It kind of challenges your whole perception of history, because if we know that this gentleman existed and he did what he has done, in the years that predate the Romans by hundreds of years, and I'm sure other historians who were more versed in this are probably like, oh, of course, like, Pytheas. For me, I didn't know this guy existed. To me, I just thought, like, when I start thinking of ancient history, I'm like, okay, I think of the Greeks as being like, first off, this map changed my perception of the Greeks entirely. Because I thought the Greeks were just kind of like an ancient historic civilization that only kind of like, existed on the Balkan Peninsula and maybe like pushed out to the Italians. But look at this map. They had colonies all the way up in Carthage and Morocco and Iberia and Spain. They were out in Egypt. They had contacts with a lot of ancient civilizations. And if they had a random explorer, Pytheas, what a bro. Like, take a journey and be like, I want to look at that waters. Like, look at this picture, right? Look, do you see land across the horizon? I don't. I see a giant empty ocean, all right? An ocean might as well be a desert, but worse. Because at least if you're in a desert, you could see some landmarks if you walk far enough. In an ocean, you can see nothing for days and days and days. And this is just like, yeah, let me just get in a boat. By the way, just these boats weren't like that well built or that sturdy. One of my historical assumptions that is getting challenged the more I read about these accounts is that to push out into the open ocean, you would have to build bigger boats, and we didn't see that all the way until the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. I'm like, dude, this dude like manned a dinghy, a 3rd century BC. Like I think, what are they called? Carracks. Let me and pushed out into this. He just looked at that water and said, I'm going to sail until I find land. And if I don't, oh well, at least write a good song about me, And they did that. They just did not care. Like mad lads. They just did not care. Like they were a different breed. And this did not only push out, he pushed out to Iceland. Okay? And again, if they could do it there, like going to Iceland is probably more difficult than it is to probably like just push a little further and go to North America. I don't know how much food and stores and stuff like that they had there. I don't know how they did it, but there was that account of that Brazilian dude in World War II. I think it was Brazilian or maybe British, I can't remember. Like the sailor whose ship was like scuttled, or not scuttled, but it was like sunk by a U-boat, and the dude survived for 190 days floating like on a piece of driftwood. Yeah, that's an incredible story, and I might like have to get into that and just like, pull back to that and discuss that later at some later time in the channel. But like, this is just insane, and I just hope like you guys are enjoying these like interesting historical mind-blowing facts as I am, because for me, my whole perception and my whole understanding of history, I've always been like fascinated to learn history and realize that like people were more bold and more adventurous and didn't live in like this total isolation that we think we do, because like, and some of this is more of like a Western European perspective, because like Western European history does seem to be like more insular and isolated, and there's only like 2 major periods where like it feels like Western Europe breaks out of that shell, and that is during the rise of the Roman Empire, and the second time is during the Enlightenment and the Age of Exploration. But you're looking at these maps, there was an age of exploration well before that, and people were taking crafts that were not as well built and as sturdy, but still strong nonetheless, and they were just pushing out into the wide open ocean. And they didn't have no Google Maps, they didn't have no weather report, they just like went out and just said, well, here goes nothing, and just did it. That's incredible. So anyway, really appreciate it if y'all made it this far into this video. I hope you enjoy these historical rants as much as I do. I know I'm having a blast just learning about like all of this kind of interesting stuff, and I feel like it's just worth sharing, just in case y'all want to go like down deeper into this and research this more. At least here's a start, because dang, this is interesting. Anyway, thank you for stopping by, and I'll talk to y'all later.